Hi, everybody. Hope you're enjoying your time in class while the juniors are out doing ACT testing. I am, of course, with them, and hopefully things are going swimmingly as you're watching this. Your class hour did not have anyone sign up to tackle the first term pair of the day, epinephrine and endorphins, so I'll help you out with that briefly. Oh, if it will let me advance the slides. There we go. Epinephrine and endorphins are two terms that showed up in our biological basis of behavior unit. And they're terms that people did not feel super confident in at the time, in partly because they were a couple of like 8 different neurotransmitters that we had to know. And confusingly, both of them start with the letter E, and they're like longish words, so I'm sure that's part of it as well. But after that, their similarities really diverge. Like, they're both body chemicals that will influence some outcome, often an outcome in people's mood state. But after that, they're pretty different, in part because epinephrine, although when we talk about its role in the nervous system, we describe it as a neurotransmitter, it technically is a hormone and has effects in the body as a hormone. So you might be asked to identify this as being a hormone, whereas endorphins would not be. If you're struggling later to remember what epinephrine is, it's also known as adrenaline. If you think of what the effects of adrenaline are, which you likely are familiar with, you've already figured out what the effects of epinephrine are. Epinephrine is produced by the adrenal glands, which sit on top of the kidney. They dump epinephrine or adrenaline into the bloodstream to activate the fight or flight response during times of emotional distress, or the need to when the need to increase physiological arousal presents itself. So its typical impacts are increases in heart rate and breathing, perspiration, pupil dilation, stuff like that. These can be connected to experiences of mood or emotion. So if you think back to our motivation and emotion unit, two-factor theory suggests that we experience those kinds of physiological activations, and then we can label them as maybe signs of fear or signs of anger or other high arousal emotions. The James Longa theory implies that those kinds of things might precede the experience of an emotion even without the labeling. So these are definitely chemicals that can be connected to mood and emotional states. So epinephrine increases physiological arousal. You may actually even remember that in testing two-factor theory, Stanley Schachter injected his participants with epinephrine in order to produce different outcomes in them. Whereas endorphins have an altogether different role. They will only ever be described as a neurotransmitter because we only find them operating within the nervous system, at least for the purposes of an intro-psych course. That's the only role we're going to talk about them in. So they're released into a synapse between two different neurons. When they are released in the brain, they tend to have pain blocking effects, and they create feelings of calmness or numbness. Some of you may remember us talking about this in the context of the runner's high or an endorphin rush. That tends to produce very floaty, pain-free feelings in people who experience it after extreme aerobic exercise. These are also neurotransmitters that are affected by opiate drugs. So opiate drugs like heroin and morphine are agonists for these things. They're going to simulate increases in them. So when people take opiate drugs, they're often inducing numbness, calmness, inducing things that are normally associated with actually lower levels of arousal. So one core difference between these things is that epinephrine tends to increase physiological arousal. In general, endorphins tend to have like a numbing and decreasing impact on people's arousal levels. An epinephrine hormone are also described as one. Endorphins only ever described as neurotransmitters. So I hope that helps, and I hope your other term pairs today go smoothly as well. Good luck with today's lesson.